I really tried my best, please watch the video until the end.
The freezing steel blade pierced my old fragile chest. Dark red blood poured onto the shiny white marble floor. My trusted student held the dagger with a cruel smile. I gave him everything and he repaid me with sudden death. The dark void swallowed my soul as I took my last breath. I expected eternal silence in the realm of the dead gods. Instead, a bright blue light blinded my spiritual vision. I felt a strange warmth wrapping around my entire body. My tiny lungs burned as I tried to draw a breath of air. A loud cry escaped my lips before I could stop myself. The sound was high and weak like a dying little animal. I opened my eyes and saw a massive wooden ceiling above. Giant dark shadows danced across the carved wooden roof. I tried to raise my hands to cast a basic death spell. Two tiny chubby arms floated into my narrow field of view. They were covered in soft, pale skin without any scars. I stared at the small fingers in absolute pure shock. This was not the body of the supreme archmage of Shadow. This was the weak and pathetic body of a newborn infant. I tried to speak, but only a soft gurgle left my mouth. Panic filled my ancient mind for a brief, fleeting second. Then a familiar glowing blue screen appeared in the air. The system interface floated right above my small face. Golden letters formed words on the transparent blue panel. "Welcome back to the mortal realm, you ancient Shadow Lord. Your soul has successfully merged with the royal infant." I read the words and felt a surge of pure magical power. The system analyzed my new physical and mental condition. Name is currently unknown, but the title is Shadow Monarch. Race is human infant with an extreme magical potential. Talent rank is evaluated as the legendary SSS class. I smiled inwardly at the glorious system notification. My past life was filled with endless pain and suffering. I had to fight for every single drop of magical energy. Now I was born with the highest possible talent ranking. I shifted my focus to the detailed personal status window. Strength is currently at the absolute lowest level 0. Agility is also at 0 because I cannot even roll over. Intelligence is maxed out due to my previous life memories. Mana capacity is growing at a truly terrifying daily rate. I decided to test my connection to the dark shadow realm. I focused my mind on the dark corner of the royal nursery. The shadow on the wall trembled slightly under my command. It felt like moving a massive stone with a weak string. My baby body was simply too weak to channel heavy magic. A sharp pain pierced my tiny head as I pushed harder now. I ignored the pain and forced the dark shadow to obey me. The darkness slowly detached itself from the stone wall. It formed a thin black tentacle that floated in the air. I made the shadow tendril dance above my wooden baby crib. A genuine feeling of joy washed over my old, cynical soul. I still had my absolute control over the dark elements. I just needed time to let this tiny vessel grow stronger. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door of the nursery creaked open. I quickly dropped the shadow tentacle back onto the floor. I pretended to be a normal sleeping baby in the warm crib. Soft footsteps echoed across the polished marble floor. A young woman approached my crib with a very heavy sigh. I opened my eyes slightly to inspect the new arrival now. She was a beautiful girl with long, flowing silver hair. Her pale face showed signs of deep exhaustion and sorrow. She wore the simple gray dress of a common palace maid, but her posture revealed a highly noble and proud origin. The system immediately displayed her basic personal stats. Her name was Ilara, and she was a fallen noble daughter. Her family was executed by the current ruling emperor. She was forced to serve the royal family as a wet nurse. Ilara looked down at me with a complex mix of emotions. She hated my father, but could not hate a little child. She gently reached out and touched my soft, chubby cheek. Her hand was incredibly warm and comforting to my skin. "You are so small and fragile in this cruel, dark world." She whispered the words with a voice full of deep sadness. I decided that this girl would become my first loyal ally. She had the perfect motivation to betray the current king. I just needed to show her my true power when the time came. For now, I closed my eyes and enjoyed her gentle touch. This infant body demanded deep sleep to grow much stronger. I drifted into a dark slumber while she sang a lullaby. Hours passed in the quiet darkness of the royal nursery. I woke up feeling slightly stronger than I was before. The system notified me that my mana capacity had increased. I started to analyze my current political situation now. I was clearly a newborn prince in a very wealthy empire. The carved wood and silk sheets indicated immense wealth. However, the lack of royal guards outside was suspicious. A royal prince should have dozens of elite knights nearby. Instead, I only had one disgraced noble girl watching me. This meant my life was considered completely worthless here, or someone very powerful wanted me dead and unprotected. My previous life taught me to always expect the worst case. I began to gather the shadows around my crib defensively. The dark energy flowed like water under my mental command. I created a thin, invisible barrier of pure shadow magic. It would alert me if anyone crossed the threshold tonight. Ilara was sleeping in a wooden chair near the large window. The pale moonlight illuminated her beautiful, tired face. Suddenly, my shadow barrier vibrated with a sharp warning. Someone was picking the iron lock on the heavy wooden door. The sound of scraping metal was loud in the silent room. I opened my eyes wide and stared at the dark entrance. Ilara shifted in her sleep but did not wake up at all. The heavy door swung open without making a single sound. A tall figure dressed in black leather stepped inside. He held a long, curved dagger that gleamed in the moonlight. The system instantly provided the basic stats of the enemy. He was a low-level assassin hired by the jealous brother. The Emperor brother wanted the throne for his own weak son. I was just an obstacle that needed to be removed quietly. The assassin moved toward my crib with silent, deadly steps. I felt a cold rage burning inside my tiny, fragile chest. I was the supreme lord of shadows in my previous long life. I destroyed entire kingdoms with a single wave of my hand. Now, a pathetic street thug dared to raise a blade at me. I decided to make his death as painful as truly possible. The assassin raised his dagger high above my sleeping form. He aimed directly for my small and vulnerable infant heart. Ilara woke up and saw the dark figure standing right there. She let out a terrified scream that shattered the silence. The assassin cursed loudly and turned his head toward her. This brief moment of distraction was all I really needed. I unleashed the dark shadows hiding beneath my wooden crib. 5 black tentacles shot upward like angry, deadly snakes. They wrapped tightly around the assassin's arms and legs. The man gasped in pure horror as the cold darkness bit him. He tried to swing his dagger, but his arm was locked tight. The shadows drained his physical strength within a second. Ilara fell to her knees and watched the impossible scene. She saw the dark magic protecting the little royal baby. The assassin looked down at me with wide, terrified eyes. He finally realized that I was not a normal human infant. I stared back at him with the cold eyes of an ancient god. A blue system window popped up with a new combat quest. Objective is to eliminate the immediate physical threat. Reward is a massive amount of experience and a new skill. I smiled mentally and tightened the grip of the shadows. The sound of breaking bones echoed loudly in the dark room. The man tried to scream, but a shadow covered his dark mouth. I crushed his limbs one by one with absolute dark precision. Blood dripped from his nose and ears onto the wooden floor. I wanted to show Ilara exactly what happens to my enemies. I wanted her to fear me, but also to worship my great power. His eyes rolled back into his head as he finally died. I released the shadows and the broken corpse hit the floor. A golden light washed over my tiny body as I leveled up. The system congratulated me on my first successful murder. I gained the active skill known as Shadow Step Mastery. I also unlocked the basic inventory space for my new items. The feeling of leveling up was incredibly addictive to me. I turned my head slowly to look at the trembling nurse. I opened the detailed system log to review the battle data. The combat lasted exactly 42 seconds from the start. I consumed exactly 10 points of my total magical energy. This meant my magic efficiency was still incredibly poor. In my past life, I could kill a dragon with just 1 point. Now I needed 10 points to kill a pathetic human rogue. I sighed internally and closed the blue glowing system log. I needed to focus on the dead problem lying on the floor. A dead body in the royal nursery would cause a huge panic. The royal guards would flood the room and ask questions. They would eventually blame Ilara for the brutal murder. I could not let my first useful pawn be executed today. I summoned the shadows once again to clean up the room. The dark energy wrapped around the broken, bleeding corpse. I used a basic devouring spell to dissolve the dead flesh. The shadows ate the body and the clothes in total silence. Even the drops of blood on the floor were quickly erased. Within seconds, there was no trace of the killer left. Ilara watched the entire process with her mouth wide open. She was shaking wildly and hugging her thin, cold shoulders. She slowly crawled toward my crib on her shaking knees. Tears streamed down her beautiful, pale face without a stop. She did not know if I was an angel or a dark demon lord. She only knew that I had saved her life from the assassin. She bowed her head until it touched the cold marble floor. "I thank you for your mercy, my great and powerful lord." Her voice was trembling but filled with absolute respect. I could not speak to her using my weak infant vocal cords. Instead, I used my shadow magic to communicate with her mind. I formed a small, dark word in the air right before her eyes. The word simply said the word serve and nothing else at all. Ilara read the floating shadow word and nodded her head. "I swear my eternal loyalty to you until the end of my days." She whispered the sacred oath of the ancient blood knights. The system registered her vow of absolute total submission. A new window appeared showing my list of loyal vassals. Ilara was added as the first member of my new dark empire. Her loyalty stat was maxed out at 100% now. I decided to reward her for her quick and smart decision. I gathered a tiny spark of shadow mana in my small hand. I flicked the dark spark toward her kneeling, trembling form. The magic entered her chest and warmed her exhausted body. A black tattoo of a crown appeared on her left thin wrist. This was the royal mark of the supreme Shadow Monarch Lord. It granted her a small portion of my immense magical power. Ilara gasped as she felt the dark energy flowing inside. Her tired eyes suddenly glowed with a faint purple light. She was no longer just a weak and helpless palace maid. She was now the first priestess of the god of dark shadows. She stood up slowly and wiped the tears from her pale face. Her posture was perfectly straight and full of new confidence. She looked at me with pure, absolute devotion in her eyes. "I will protect your secret until you are ready to rule us." She whispered softly and bowed gracefully before my crib. I closed my eyes again and let the system process the data. I needed to review the entire history of this current world. The system database provided a massive amount of information. This empire was founded 300 years ago by a hero. The hero used light magic to banish the ancient shadow gods. I found this historical fact to be extremely deeply ironic. The descendants of the hero were now ruling the massive land. However, the current royal bloodline was incredibly weak now. The empire was slowly rotting from the inside out every day. Corrupt nobles stole money from the poor, starving peasants. Enemy kingdoms were gathering huge armies at the borders. The current emperor was a coward who hid inside his palace. He let his cruel advisors make all the important decisions. I read all this information and formed a simple master plan. I would take control of this pathetic empire from the inside. I would use the shadows to manipulate every single noble lord. I would sit in my baby crib and dictate the royal decrees. Anyone who opposed my silent rule would simply vanish away. The sun began to rise outside the large glass nursery window. The golden morning light filled the beautifully decorated room. I heard the loud sounds of the palace waking up for the day. Guards marched down the long stone hallways with heavy steps. Servants rushed around to prepare the grand royal breakfast. Ilara sat beside my crib and held my tiny, soft baby hand. She smiled warmly at me like a true, loving older sister. I pretended to be a cute, innocent baby who knew absolutely nothing. The heavy wooden door opened again after a few long hours. A large group of men walked into my quiet and peaceful room. The man in the front wore a heavy golden crown on his head. He was the current emperor of this massive human kingdom. He was also officially my biological father in this new life. I looked at him and felt nothing in my ancient, cold heart. He looked extremely weak and tired despite his royal robes. The system showed his stats and confirmed my suspicions. His health was slowly draining away due to a hidden poison. Someone was slowly killing the emperor over a long time. I shifted my gaze to the tall man standing right behind him. This man wore the dark red robes of the royal chancellor. He had a sharp face and cold gray eyes that scanned the bed. The system highlighted his name in a bright red warning. He was the true ruler of this pathetic, crumbling empire. He was the one who ordered the assassin to kill me tonight. I smiled a cute baby smile at the evil royal chancellor. He looked at me and frowned slightly with deep disgust. He did not know that he was staring at his future dark god. The war for the empire had officially begun in this room. He stepped forward and looked down at my small, fragile body. "What a useless little creature you have produced, my king." The chancellor spoke with a voice full of hidden dark poison. The emperor flinched slightly and looked away in deep shame. "He is still my blood, and the royal prince of this empire." The weak king muttered the words without any real conviction. The chancellor laughed softly and touched the wooden crib. "Accidents happen to small, weak children all the time, sire. We must ensure the royal nursery is completely safe for him." He looked directly into my eyes as he spoke the dark threat. I felt a surge of dark, magical energy gather in my tiny hands. I wanted to snap his neck right here in front of everyone. But I knew that patience was the greatest weapon of a king. I let out a loud baby giggle and reached for his dark robes. He pulled his hand back quickly as if I was a dirty rat. Elara stepped forward and bowed deeply before the royal men. "The young prince is very hungry and needs his morning milk." She spoke calmly despite the massive danger standing nearby. The chancellor glared at her with his cold, dead gray eyes. "Do your job well, nurse, or you will join your dead family." He threatened her openly in front of the silent, weak king. Elara did not show any fear and simply nodded her head once. The royal men finally turned around and left the quiet room. The heavy wooden door closed behind them with a loud bang. I stopped giggling and let my face turn completely cold again. Elara looked at me and I formed another dark shadow word. The word floating in the air simply said the word tonight. She understood exactly what I meant by that single message. The chancellor would send another killer tonight for sure. I closed my eyes and began to gather my dark magical power. The Shadow Monarch was finally ready to start his bloody hunt. The system interface glowed brightly in my dark vision. I checked the blue screen to review my current daily growth. My total mana capacity had doubled since the last bloody kill. This was the supreme benefit of my legendary rank Dark Soul. In my past life, I struggled for long decades to reach this. Now I was gaining immense power just by taking a long sleep. Elara sat quietly near the large glass royal nursery window. She was reading a dusty old book about strict imperial laws. Her new dark magic was slowly changing her entire weak aura. She looked much more confident and extremely deadly than before. I needed to expand my small dark faction before night fell. One loyal nurse was simply not enough to win this bloody war. I formed a tiny shadow word in the air above my small chest. The black letters spelled the word ally for her to clearly see. Elara noticed the floating text and closed her heavy old book. She walked over to my wooden crib and bowed very gracefully. "You want me to find another loyal servant for you, my lord?" I blinked my large, innocent baby eyes to say yes to her now. She smiled warmly and stroked my soft, pale little baby cheek. "I know exactly who we need for our growing dark shadow empire. There is a ruined guard who patrols the lower cold dungeons. His name is Kyle, and he hates the royal chancellor deeply too. The evil chancellor ordered his elite men to break Kyle's legs. He is crippled, but his heart burns with a very dark revenge. I like the sound of this broken and angry royal palace guard. A broken man is the easiest tool to reforge with heavy magic. I formed the word, bring in the air, with my dark shadow mana." Elara nodded once and quickly left the quiet royal nursery. I spent the next hour absorbing pure ambient magical energy. The grand palace was built on a massive underground mana vein. I pulled the raw energy through the thick, heavy stone floors. My baby lungs expanded as the pure power filled my dark soul. The system chimed with a series of golden bright notifications. "Your magical core is expanding at an absolutely unprecedented rate. You have unlocked the passive skill known as Total Mana Sight." I opened my eyes and saw the world in a brand new bright light. Bright streams of energy flowed through the thick stone walls. I could see the life force of every single servant walking by. The heavy wooden door slowly creaked open once again right now. Ilara entered the room supporting a tall and very heavy man. The man wore rusty iron armor over dirty gray cheap clothes. He limped heavily on his right leg with a thick wooden cane. His face was covered in thick, ugly scars and a messy, rough beard. He looked like a wild beast that had been beaten very badly. Ilara locked the heavy door and guided him to my wooden crib. "Why did you bring me to the royal nursery, little stupid maid?" Kale spoke with a deep and rusty voice full of endless sorrow. "The Chancellor will kill us both if he finds me hiding here." Ilara stood tall and let her purple dark aura flare up briefly. "I serve a master who is far greater than the evil Chancellor." She pointed her pale, slender finger down at my small baby bed. Kale looked down at me and let out a loud and very bitter laugh. "You want me to serve a helpless little crying, weak baby infant? Have you finally lost your mind in this cursed giant palace?" I decided it was time to show this broken, sad dog his true god. I activated my shadow step mastery without any prior warning. The light in the nursery suddenly vanished into absolute nothing. Thick black smoke poured out from beneath my small wooden bed. The dark shadows crawled up the stone walls like giant spiders. Kale dropped his wooden cane in absolute, pure, total blind terror. He reached for his rusty sword, but his large hands were shaking. I formed a massive demonic face in the dark air above my crib. The shadow face looked down at Kale with burning, bright red eyes. I projected my ancient voice directly into his weak, broken mind. "Kneel before your true emperor, you broken, pathetic little worm." The sheer mental pressure forced Kale to his dirty, ruined knees. He gasped for air as my dark magic crushed his weak human soul. Ilara watched the entire scene with a proud little happy smile. She knew exactly how terrifying my true magical power really was. Kale looked at my tiny baby body lying in the warm wooden crib. He finally understood that I was controlling the deadly shadows. "What kind of dark monster are you hiding in that tiny shell?" He whispered the words while staring at my glowing bright eyes. "I am the one who will give you your bloody, sweet, dark revenge." I spoke into his mind with a voice like grinding heavy stones. "I can heal your broken leg and give you absolute total power. You only have to swear your eternal loyalty to my dark crown." Kyle did not even hesitate for a single passing short second. He had nothing left to lose in this cruel and very dark world. "I swear my life and my blade to you, my supreme dark shadow lord." The system confirmed his vow and added him to my small faction. I gathered a large amount of healing shadow mana very slowly. I directed the dark energy into his ruined right heavy leg now. The shadows wrapped around his bones and fixed the deep damage. Kyle screamed in pain as his torn muscles reformed instantly. The dark magic was brutal, but incredibly highly super effective. He slowly stood up and put his full heavy weight on his right leg. His eyes widened in pure shock as he felt no pain at all today. A black tattoo of a sword appeared on his thick, heavy, dirty neck. He was now the first Dark Knight of my fast-growing new empire. "Thank you, my lord, for returning my lost strength back to me now." He bowed so low that his head almost touched the cold stone floor. I smiled my cute baby smile and giggled very softly right now. It was highly amusing to see a giant, strong man fear an infant. Ilara handed him a sharp steel sword from her old secret stash. "The Chancellor will send his elite killers here tonight for sure." Ilara explained the current tactical situation to the Knight Kale. "We must protect the young lord at all possible heavy, brutal costs." Kale gripped his new sword and smiled a very cruel, dark smile. "I will gladly butcher those royal dogs for our new great master." I closed my eyes and let my two loyal, simple pawns make plans. I needed to save all my mana for the upcoming bloody night fight. The sun slowly disappeared behind the high stone palace outer walls. Darkness swallowed the massive royal estate once again tonight. This was my absolute favorite time of the entire long, boring day. My shadow magic was twice as strong during the deep black night. I activated my mana sight to watch the stone-cold corridors. Ilara turned off the oil lamps inside the royal quiet nursery. Kale hid behind the heavy wooden door with his drawn, sharp blade. I pretended to sleep peacefully in my soft, warm little baby bed. The silence in the room was thick and extremely heavy right now. Suddenly, I saw 3 bright red energy signatures moving fast. They were walking silently down the long stone dark hallway. These were not cheap street thugs like the last dumb assassin. These were highly trained elite killers of the dark hidden hand. They wore magic rings that hid their physical heavy footsteps. I sent a quick mental warning to both Ilara and Kale right now. 3 elite enemies are approaching the main heavy wooden door. Do not engage them until they are fully inside the dark room. I will blind them with my shadows to give you the deadly edge. The heavy lock on the door clicked with a very soft metal sound. The door swung open and 3 men dressed in black gear entered. They held curved, poisoned blades that glowed faint, sickly green. The leader pointed his sharp dagger directly at my wooden crib. He signaled his men to move forward and finish the bloody job. I waited until they were completely inside my dark magical trap. I snapped my tiny fingers and unleashed my stored shadow magic. A massive explosion of pure darkness filled the entire large room. The magical shadows instantly blinded the 3 elite assassins. They panicked and swung their poisoned blades blindly in the air. Kale stepped out from the dark corner like a giant angry demon. He swung his heavy steel sword with absolute brutal raw force. The blade cut clean through the neck of the first silent killer. A fountain of warm red blood sprayed across the cold stone floor. The second assassin heard the wet sound and turned around fast. Ilara raised her thin hand and cast her new dark shadow spell. A sharp spike of solid darkness shot out from her pale right palm. The dark spike pierced the chest of the second elite killer now. He dropped his poisoned dagger and fell down completely dead. The leader of the assassins was a highly skilled battle veteran. He instantly realized that this was a deadly magical dark trap. He did not try to fight Kale or the dangerous shadow magic maid. He charged directly toward my crib with incredible fast speed. He knew that killing the royal baby was his only real mission. His glowing green blade was aiming right for my small baby head. Kale shouted in pure anger, but he was simply too far away now. Ilara screamed my name and tried to run across the dark room. The assassin smiled under his dark mask as he got much closer. He thought he had finally won this bloody midnight deadly game. He severely underestimated the supreme lord of all dark shadows. I did not even blink as his deadly poisoned blade fell fast down. I channeled all my remaining mana into a single dark heavy shield. A thick wall of hardened black shadow formed above my small bed. The steel blade struck the dark shield with a loud heavy metal bang. The sheer force of the impact shattered his expensive rare weapon. The assassin stared at his broken blade in absolute pure shock. His brain could not process how a baby cast a master rank spell. I smiled coldly and used my shadow tentacles to grab him tight. The dark vines wrapped around his throat and lifted him high up. He kicked his legs in the air as he slowly choked to cold death. I pulled him close to my face so he could see my glowing eyes. "Tell your evil master that the shadows are coming for him soon." I whispered the cold words directly into his dying, weak little mind. I squeezed his throat until his neck snapped with a loud bone pop. His lifeless body dropped heavily onto the cold, hard marble floor. The system chimed happily and announced my massive, epic victory. I gained 2 full levels and unlocked the Dark Minion rare skill. My mana pool increased again, making me even more truly dangerous. The nursery was completely silent except for heavy, loud breathing. Kyle wiped the fresh red blood from his long, sharp steel sword. Ilara rushed to my crib to check if I was completely safe. I giggled and reached out to grab her long, soft silver hair now. She sighed in deep relief and kissed my tiny, soft, warm baby hand. "We survived the night, but the Chancellor will not stop his attacks." Kale spoke grimly while looking at the 3 dead, bloody bodies. He will realize that his elite shadow squad failed very badly here. I knew Kale was absolutely right about our current bad situation. The evil Chancellor was a paranoid and deeply careful smart man. He would not just send more random killers to my dark, quiet room. He would try to use his massive political absolute power against me. I needed to strike back before he could form a new deadly plan. I commanded the shadows to consume the 3 dead, bloody bodies. The dark magic ate the flesh and bone in complete, utter silence. The room was perfectly clean again within a few short, fast minutes. I opened my system inventory and checked my new epic loot drops. The assassins dropped 3 magical rings of total deep silence. I mentally transferred 2 rings to Ilara and my loyal knight Kyle. Put these rings on your fingers to hide your daily loud movements. I commanded them using my telepathic shadow mind communication. We are no longer just hiding in this quiet royal baby nursery. We are going to start taking over this massive dark grand palace. Ilara and Kale bowed deeply and accepted their magic dark rings. The sun began to rise again, bringing a new, dangerous, bright day. The heavy wooden door opened and a royal palace servant walked in. He carried a silver tray with hot fresh milk and soft warm bread. He looked around the room and seemed extremely deeply confused now. He was clearly a hidden spy working for the dark evil chancellor. He expected to find a dead baby and a crying royal sad nurse. Instead, he saw a perfectly clean room and a happy cute infant. Ilara took the silver tray and smiled sweetly at the dumb spy. The young prince slept very peacefully through the entire night. She spoke with perfect grace and elegant, noble high confidence. The spy nodded nervously and quickly left the quiet, bright room. He was going to report this total failure to his evil, cruel master. I drank my warm milk and prepared for the next big, bloody battle. My small team was ready to face the entire corrupt, weak empire. I just needed to grow my tiny body a little bit faster right now. The system suddenly flashed with a bright red warning danger sign. A massive magical scan was sweeping across the whole grand palace. The chancellor had hired a supreme royal mage to find me today. The magical wave hit my dark shadow barrier with massive force. My invisible shield cracked slightly under the heavy pure pressure. I realized that my current power level was simply not quite enough. I had to find a massive source of raw mana very quickly right now. I looked at Kale and formed a new dark word in the cold, clear air. The word vault floated in front of his scarred, ugly, rough face. He understood my command and smiled a very dangerous, dark smile. The royal treasure vault is located deep below the grand palace. It is filled with ancient magical artifacts and pure, raw crystals. I will take you there tonight, my supreme dark shadow baby lord. The real war for this massive empire was finally escalating fast. The morning sun climbed higher into the bright, clear blue sky. I spent the next few hours pretending to be a normal, dumb baby. Ilara sang soft lullabies while I played with wooden cheap toys. My mind was busy calculating our exact path to the deep vault. The system provided a detailed blue map of the entire huge palace. I saw hundreds of red dots patrolling the long stone dark halls. The royal treasure vault was heavily guarded by elite fire mages. We could not simply walk down there and open the heavy iron door. We needed a perfect distraction to clear the main wide corridors. I formed another shadow message for my 2 loyal, brave servants. We need a large fire in the eastern wing of the big main palace. Kale nodded his head and touched his new magical dark black ring. I know where they store the cheap oil for the winter warm lamps. I can start a massive fire that will draw all the stupid guards. Ilara looked worried, but she trusted my infinite, deep, dark wisdom. She wrapped my tiny body in a thick, black, silk, warm baby blanket. She placed me inside a small woven basket to hide my pale face. I felt like a smuggled piece of fruit in this cheap old basket. But my pride did not matter when ultimate pure power was so close. The sun finally set, and the palace plunged into deep, dark night. Kale slipped out of the nursery like a silent, giant, fast ghost. His magic ring completely hid the sound of his heavy, big steps. I waited patiently in the dark basket while Ilara held me tight. 10 long minutes passed in total and absolute dead-cold silence. Suddenly, a loud, massive explosion shook the entire huge building. Bright orange flames erupted from the eastern palace stone wing. Loud alarm bells started ringing across the massive royal estate. I heard the frantic shouts of the royal guards running very fast. The plan was working perfectly, just as I had calculated it all. Ilara opened the heavy nursery door and stepped outside right now. The stone hallway was completely empty and filled with thick smoke. She walked quickly toward the hidden stairs to the deep dungeons. I used my mana sight to scan the area for any hidden magic traps. I guided her steps using my direct telepathic shadow mind link. Turn left at the next corner and wait for the patrol to pass by. Ilara followed my exact commands without a single dumb question. We reached the dark entrance to the deep underground cold vaults. Kyle was already waiting for us in the cold, dark black shadows. His face was covered in black soot from the massive hot fire. The eastern wing is burning nicely, my supreme dark shadow lord. All the elite guards are busy trying to save the old paintings. We have exactly 20 minutes before they check the main vault. I smiled inside my dark basket and sent a pulse of happy magic. We moved deeper into the cold and damp underground dark tunnels. The air smelled of old dust and ancient, powerful magic right now. We finally reached a massive door made of solid black heavy iron. The door was covered in glowing blue magical locking bright runes. "This is the master seal of the first supreme light royal hero," Kale whispered with a tone of deep fear in his rough, rusty voice. "No one can open this door without the royal blood magic ring." I laughed mentally at his complete and utter total foolishness. The magic of the light hero was nothing but a cheap party trick. I commanded Ilara to place my small basket near the heavy door. I reached out my tiny pale hand toward the glowing blue runes. I pushed my pure dark shadow mana into the ancient magic seal. The blue light flickered and turned into a sickly dark purple. The ancient magic tried to resist my overwhelming dark pure power. I pushed harder and shattered the magical core completely to dust. The heavy iron door groaned loudly and slowly swung open right now. Kyle stared at me with his mouth wide open in pure total shock. He could not believe a baby just broke the legendary magic seal. We stepped inside the massive royal underground treasure dark room. Mountains of gold coins and shiny jewels filled the massive space. But I did not care about useless mortal money or shiny fake gold. My glowing eyes locked onto a massive crystal in the room center. It was the heart of a dead dragon filled with infinite raw mana. This was exactly what I needed to evolve my tiny, weak baby body. "Bring me to the large glowing red stone right now, my dear Ilara." I commanded her, and she quickly carried me to the giant crystal. I placed both my tiny hands on the warm surface of the huge gem. I activated my supreme devouring shadow skill instantly right now. The dark magic wrapped around the massive red dead dragon heart. A massive flood of pure raw energy rushed into my small dark soul. The system interface went absolutely crazy with fast notifications. Mana capacity has reached the maximum level for a human infant. Forced physical evolution protocol is now initiating very safely. I felt my tiny bones stretching and growing much stronger rapidly. My muscles became dense and filled with pure magical raw power. I was still a baby, but I was no longer physically deeply fragile. The massive red crystal turned gray and crumbled into fine dust. I had drained the entire magical reserve of the royal deep vault. Suddenly, a loud magical alarm started screaming in the large room. The destruction of the dragon heart triggered a hidden deep trap. The heavy iron door slammed shut, locking us inside the dark vault. I sensed a very powerful magical presence approaching very fast. The Supreme Royal Mage had finally found my exact real location. He was standing right outside the heavy iron vault locked door. He began to cast a massive destructive fire spell right outside. "We are trapped in here like rats, my lord," Kale shouted very loudly. I smiled a truly evil smile and floated out of my small basket. My new evolved body allowed me to levitate using dark pure magic. I am not trapped in here with them. I am the supreme real danger. I gathered all my newly acquired mana into my right small hand. I prepared to show the royal mage the true power of all shadows. The thick iron door began to melt under the extreme magical heat. Bright red flames pushed through the small cracks right about now. Kyle raised his heavy steel sword and stood bravely before me. Ilara prepared her sharp dark magic spikes for the coming fight. I floated in the air like a tiny dark god of massive destruction. The system interface glowed brightly in my dark magical vision. New quest received to defeat the Supreme Royal Elite Fire Mage. Reward is unlocking the second tier of Absolute Shadow Mastery. The melted iron door finally collapsed inward with a huge crash. A tall man wearing expensive red robes stepped into the dark vault. His hands were glowing with intense and terrifying bright fire. He looked at Kale and Ilara with absolute pure, utter, deep disgust. "You pathetic rats dared to steal from the royal treasure vault." He raised his burning hands to turn my loyal servants into ash. He did not even notice the tiny baby floating near the ceiling. This was the exact fatal mistake that would end his pathetic life. I pointed my small finger at his back and released my dark spell. A massive spear of pure compressed shadow shot across the room. The dark spear pierced right through his expensive magical shield. It hit his right shoulder and pinned him to the cold stone floor. The supreme mage screamed in absolute agony and pure deep terror. His glowing fire magic flickered and died out completely right now. He looked up and finally saw me floating above him in the dark. His eyes widened in absolute horror as he felt my crushing aura. "You are not a human, baby. You are a pure ancient monster from hell." He spat blood onto the floor and tried to cast another fire spell. I did not let him finish his pathetic little magical incantation. I dropped down from the ceiling and landed right on his chest. My tiny baby feet felt incredibly heavy on his broken, weak ribs. I leaned in close and looked directly into his terrified, wide eyes. "I am the Shadow Monarch, and you will serve me until you die now." I activated my new mind control skill directly on his weak brain. Black veins spread across his face as my magic invaded his mind. He thrashed and screamed, but my dark power was simply too absolute. His eyes rolled back and turned completely pitch black very fast. The supreme royal mage was now my completely mindless, loyal slave. I stepped off his chest and floated back into my woven basket. Kyle and Ilara stared at me with pure worship in their wide eyes. They knew they were following a true god in a tiny baby body. "We must return to the nursery before the Chancellor finds us here." I commanded my new slave to melt the broken door completely away. We walked back through the dark tunnels without any real trouble. The palace was still in complete chaos because of the massive fire. We reached the nursery, and I laid back down in my warm baby crib. The Chancellor would soon discover his supreme mage was fully broken. He would realize that a terrifying monster lived inside his palace. The real game of absolute power was just getting truly started. The bright morning sun filled the quiet royal nursery. I opened my eyes and checked the blue system interface. My mana capacity was completely full and very powerful. The vault raid gave me an incredible amount of raw power. I could now levitate freely using my pure shadow magic. Ilara sat quietly near the large glass royal window now. She was reading a dusty old book about dark magic spells. Kyle was guarding the heavy wooden door with his sword. His right leg was completely healed by my supreme magic. The mind-controlled fire mage was hiding in the shadows. I called him Absolute Zero because he had no free will. He was a perfect puppet for my upcoming Dark Master plan. The Grand Palace was in total chaos after the huge fire. Guards were running around looking for the vault thieves. They did not know the thief was a tiny royal baby prince. I giggled softly and reached out for my warm milk bottle. Ilara smiled and handed me the silver cup with warm milk. "Drink up, my little dark lord, and grow your massive power." She whispered the words with absolute, pure, true devotion. I drank the milk and felt my tiny baby muscles grow fast. A loud knock echoed across the silent, cold stone hallway. Kyle tightened his grip on his heavy, sharp steel weapon. "Open the door right now by order of the Royal Chancellor," a harsh voice shouted from behind the thick wooden door. Ilara looked at me, and I gave her a small mental command. She walked over and slowly opened the heavy iron lock now. 10 royal elite guards marched into my quiet baby nursery. They wore shiny silver armor and carried long, sharp spears. The captain of the guard looked at Ilara with pure disgust. "The evil Chancellor demands your presence in the Grand Hall. Bring the royal infant and do not try any stupid tricks now." I smiled internally because the real game was starting now. The evil Chancellor was walking right into my deadly trap. Ilara wrapped my small body in a thick black silk blanket. She lifted me up with extreme care and deep, true reverence. Kyle followed right behind us like a giant, angry, dark bear. We walked down the long, cold stone corridors of the palace. The walls were decorated with ancient, expensive paintings. I used my mana sight to scan the entire massive building. Bright streams of magical energy flowed through the floors. I saw hundreds of armed guards gathered in the throne room. The evil Chancellor had prepared a massive public trial now. He wanted to humiliate me and destroy my small, dark faction. He completely underestimated the Supreme Lord of all shadows. We finally reached the massive golden doors of the big hall. Two giant guards pushed the heavy doors open with loud groans. The grand throne room was filled with hundreds of rich nobles. They wore expensive silk clothes and bright shiny gold rings. The weak emperor sat on his massive shiny golden high throne. He looked incredibly pale and very sick from the dark poison. The evil chancellor stood right beside the weak royal throne. He wore his dark red robes and held a long wooden magic staff. His cold gray eyes locked onto my small, fragile baby body now. He smiled a very cruel and deeply confident, evil, dark smile. Alara walked forward and bowed deeply before the weak emperor. Kale stood tall and glared at the elite guards with pure hate. The entire grand hall fell into complete and absolute silence. The evil chancellor raised his long wooden staff in the air. "We are gathered here to expose a terrible and dark conspiracy." He spoke with a loud, booming voice that echoed across the room. "Last night, our royal treasure vault was brutally attacked now. The supreme fire mage was killed by a vile dark magic spell. I smiled internally because his information was entirely wrong. The supreme fire mage was currently hiding inside my shadow." The chancellor pointed his bony long finger directly at Alara. "This pathetic wet nurse is secretly a dangerous dark witch now. She used forbidden magic to murder our elite royal palace men. She is trying to curse the young prince and destroy our realm." The rich nobles gasped loudly and whispered among themselves. They were completely brainwashed by his clever political lies. The weak emperor coughed loudly and looked at Alara with fear. "Is this terrible dark accusation truly real, my loyal chancellor?" the weak king asked with a trembling and very pathetic voice. "I will prove her absolute guilt right here in front of you all." The evil chancellor clapped his hands and two guards stepped up. They carried a massive glowing white crystal on a silver tray. "This is the legendary ancient stone of absolute pure light truth. It will glow bright black if a person uses evil dark magic now." The chancellor looked at Alara with a highly victorious smile. "Place your dirty hands on the holy stone and reveal your sins," he commanded her with absolute pure, arrogant, and deep confidence. Alara looked down at me and I gave her a tiny mental dark nod. I had already analyzed the weak magic of the ancient holy stone. It was a pathetic light artifact from the first royal hero king. I could easily manipulate its core with my supreme shadow mana. Alara stepped forward and placed her hands on the white crystal. The evil chancellor waited for the stone to turn completely dark. He wanted to execute her publicly and take me away as a hostage. I pushed a massive wave of pure shadow magic into the cold floor. The dark energy traveled invisibly beneath the shiny marble tiles. My magic entered the holy stone and completely altered its runes. The white crystal glowed with an incredibly bright, pure blue light. It did not turn black, and it did not show any signs of dark magic. The blue light meant that Alara was completely pure and innocent. The rich nobles gasped again and looked at the evil royal leader. The evil chancellor stared at the bright blue stone in pure shock. His cruel, confident smile vanished from his ugly, old, wrinkled face. "This is absolutely impossible, and the ancient stone must be broken." He shouted loudly and slammed his wooden staff onto the hard floor. I giggled softly from my warm basket to mock his total dumb failure. The weak emperor looked at the evil chancellor with deep confusion. The holy stone never lies, so the royal nurse is clearly innocent. The king spoke with a tiny hint of rare courage in his weak voice. The evil chancellor was turning very red with absolute pure deep rage. He refused to accept this massive public and very total humiliation. He marched down from the high throne and approached the holy crystal. "I will test this broken artifact myself right now in front of you." He placed his large bony hands on the glowing blue holy magic stone. This was the exact precise moment I had been waiting for all morning. I unleashed the full terrifying power of my dark shadow magic core. I forced the ancient holy stone to react to his hidden dark poison. The glowing crystal instantly turned into a deep pitch black color. Thick dark smoke poured out of the stone and covered his old hands. The holy artifact screamed with a loud and very terrifying high pitch. The rich nobles screamed in pure absolute terror and stepped back. The weak emperor stood up from his golden throne in total pure shock. "The stone is black, which means the chancellor is the true evil traitor. A brave noble shouted from the back of the massive grand throne room. The evil chancellor pulled his hands away like he touched hot fire. "This is a dark magical trick and I am completely, totally innocent," he yelled frantically while looking at his blackened, dirty old hands. But the public humiliation was already absolutely, totally complete. The entire royal court saw him exposed as a vile dark magic user. I decided to deliver the final crushing blow to his political power. I sent a direct mental command to my hidden mind-controlled dark slave. The heavy golden doors of the grand hall suddenly blasted wide open. The supreme royal fire mage walked into the room with heavy, slow steps. He wore his expensive red robes, but his eyes were completely black now. The evil chancellor looked at his trusted mage with immense, deep relief. "Tell these fools that the nurse attacked you in the royal dark vault." The evil chancellor commanded his supposed loyal elite magic servant. The supreme mage stopped in the middle of the large grand throne room. He pointed his finger directly at the terrified, evil royal chancellor. "This man ordered me to steal the ancient dragon heart from the vault. He also ordered me to slowly poison the weak emperor over many years." The controlled mage spoke with a loud and completely emotionless voice. The entire grand hall erupted into absolute, pure, total, massive chaos. The rich nobles yelled and demanded the immediate arrest of the traitor. The weak king clutched his chest as he realized the horrible, dark truth. "Guards, arrest the evil chancellor right now for high royal treason." The weak emperor shouted with all his remaining tiny physical strength. The royal guards hesitated because they feared the evil, powerful man. The chancellor realized that his grand master plan was totally ruined. He looked around the room like a trapped and very angry, wild, dirty rat. He pulled a glowing red magical crystal from his dark, expensive robes. "If I am going down, I will take this entire pathetic empire with me now." He crushed the red crystal and activated his secret hidden elite army. Dozens of heavily armed assassins dropped down from the high ceiling. They wore black armor and carried highly toxic green poisoned blades. "Kill everyone in this room and bring me the royal baby alive right now." The evil chancellor screamed like a total, absolute, crazy mad lunatic. The rich nobles panicked and ran toward the locked heavy golden doors. The royal guards clashed with the elite dark assassins in bloody combat. I smiled from my soft, warm basket and prepared for the massive slaughter. This was the perfect moment to show the true power of my dark faction. Kale drew his heavy steel sword and stepped in front of my small basket. Ilara raised her pale hands and gathered her deadly dark shadow magic. 3 dark assassins charged directly at us with their poisoned blades. Kale swung his massive sword and cut the first assassin completely in half. Warm red blood sprayed across the shiny white marble grand floor tiles. Ilara fired a sharp dark spike that pierced the second killer right through. The third assassin tried to jump over Kale to reach my small baby basket. I simply blinked my eyes and summoned a massive invisible shadow hand. The dark hand grabbed the jumping killer and crushed his fragile bones. He fell to the floor like a broken and completely useless bloody ragdoll. The system interface flashed rapidly with multiple golden level up signs. I was gaining massive experience from this huge, chaotic, bloody battle. The evil chancellor watched in pure horror as his elite men died fast. He could not understand how a crippled guard and a nurse were so strong. He began to chant a very complex and highly destructive dark fire spell. He wanted to burn the entire grand hall into a pile of gray, dirty ash. I could not let him destroy my future beautiful grand royal palace now. I sent another direct mental command to my mind-controlled supreme mage. The slave mage ran forward and tackled the evil chancellor to the floor. The dark fire spell exploded harmlessly against the high stone ceiling. The evil chancellor punched his former loyal servant in the bloody face. "Get off me, you useless, broken, pathetic excuse for a royal magic user!" The evil old man screamed while trying to push the heavy mage away. I decided it was time to personally intervene in this pathetic little fight. I levitated my small body out of the woven basket using pure dark magic. I floated high into the air above the massive, chaotic, bloody grand hall. A terrifying aura of pure, ancient shadow magic erupted from my tiny body. The entire room suddenly became freezing cold and absolutely, totally dark. The fighting stopped completely as everyone stared up at the royal baby. I formed a massive crown of dark shadows above my small, tiny infant head. My eyes glowed with a terrifying and absolutely blinding bright purple light. Kneel before your true supreme monarch, you pathetic, weak, mortal insects. I projected my ancient demonic voice directly into every single weak mind. The sheer mental pressure was incredibly heavy and absolutely devastating. The royal guards dropped their shiny spears and fell to their weak knees. The rich nobles collapsed onto the floor, crying in absolute pure terror. Even the elite dark assassins could not resist my overwhelming dark power. They dropped their poisoned blades and bowed their heads in total defeat. The weak emperor fell from his golden throne and crawled on the hard floor. The evil chancellor was the only one trying to resist my supreme command. He pushed himself up from the floor and glared at me with pure, deep hate. "You are a cursed dark demon, and I will destroy you with my own bare hands." He pulled a hidden silver dagger from his boot and threw it right at me. The sharp blade flew through the air, aiming directly for my small head. I did not even move a single tiny muscle to dodge his pathetic, weak attack. The silver dagger hit my invisible shadow barrier and shattered into dust. I floated down slowly and landed right in front of the evil old chancellor. I looked up at him with my glowing purple eyes and smiled a very evil smile. "You thought you were the smart hunter, but you were always the dumb prey." I whispered the cold, dark words directly into his broken and terrified mind. I raised my tiny pale right hand and snapped my small fingers very loudly. Thick black shadow tentacles erupted from the shiny white marble floor tiles. They wrapped tightly around his old legs and pulled him down to his knees. The evil chancellor screamed in pure agony as the shadows crushed his bones. I wanted him to suffer a truly deeply humiliating and very painful defeat. I used my magic to rip the expensive dark red robes right off his old body. He was left kneeling in his dirty, cheap white undergarments before everyone. The rich nobles watched in absolute pure shock as their leader was broken. The man who ruled the massive empire through pure fear was now a total joke. He cried like a pathetic little baby while the shadows drained his energy. "Please spare my miserable life, and I will give you all my massive wealth," he begged with a trembling voice while tears ruined his ugly, wrinkled face. "I do not need your useless, dirty gold because I already own this whole world," I replied coldly and tightened the dark grip around his weak, fragile throat. I did not kill him right away because death was simply too easy for him now. I activated my supreme mind control skill and invaded his broken, weak brain. I completely erased his free will and turned him into my loyal, dumb puppet. His eyes rolled back and turned pitch black just like the supreme fire mage. The evil chancellor was now nothing more than a mindless slave to my dark will. I released the shadow tentacles and let him stand back up on his broken legs. He bowed deeply before me and kissed my tiny pale baby foot with total respect. I served the supreme Shadow Monarch until the very end of my miserable life. He announced his absolute pure loyalty loudly for the entire Grand Hall to hear. The public humiliation of my greatest political enemy was finally complete. I floated back into my warm woven basket and recalled my heavy dark aura. The freezing cold temperature in the grand room slowly returned to normal. The rich nobles and the royal guards slowly stood up with trembling, weak legs. They looked at my small baby basket with absolute, pure, terrifying, deep fear. They finally realized that a true ancient god was living inside their palace. The weak emperor slowly crawled back onto his shiny, golden, tall, high throne. He looked at me and then looked at his mind-controlled, evil old chancellor. My son is truly blessed by the ancient gods, and he will save our great empire. The weak king declared loudly, trying to pretend he was still in total control. I smiled internally, because the pathetic king was completely, deeply delusional. I was the one in absolute total control of this massive, crumbling human empire. Ilara picked up my small basket and held me close to her warm, beating heart. Kyle stood proudly beside us with his heavy steel sword resting on his shoulder. We had won a massive and truly epic political victory today in this grand hall. The system interface popped up with a series of glorious golden bright rewards. Quest completed successfully, and the main antagonist is completely humiliated. You have gained a massive amount of experience and unlocked a new passive skill. The new skill is called Absolute Royal Authority, and it boosts minion power. My loyal servants will now deal double damage to all my pathetic weak enemies. I closed the blue glowing system window and felt a deep sense of total success. We turned around and slowly walked out of the massive, silent, grand throne room. The royal guards bowed their heads deeply as we passed by them in the hallway. They knew exactly who held the true absolute power in this massive royal palace. We returned to the quiet royal nursery, and I finally relaxed my tiny, tired body. Using that much supreme dark magic was still very exhausting for a human baby. Ilara placed me gently back into my soft, warm, wooden, comfortable baby crib now. You were absolutely magnificent today, my supreme and incredibly powerful lord, she whispered softly while tucking the black silk blanket around my small chest. KL nodded his head and smiled a very wide and highly dangerous, dark, wild smile. The entire empire belongs to you now, and no one can stop our glorious dark rise. He spoke with absolute, pure, total confidence in my infinite, dark, magical wisdom. I drank another silver cup of warm milk and prepared to take a very long, deep nap. But the life of a supreme Shadow Monarch is never truly completely peaceful here. Just as I closed my glowing purple eyes, the system alarm flashed bright red now. A massive new magical threat has entered the outer borders of the royal estate. I opened my eyes and used my total mana sight to scan the far-distant heavy gates. A massive army of holy knights wearing bright glowing golden armor was arriving. They carried huge white banners with the symbol of the Supreme Holy Light Church. At the front of the army rode a tall man wearing a massive shiny silver helmet. He radiated an overwhelming amount of pure, destructive holy light magic energy. The system identified him as the Grand High Inquisitor of the Supreme Holy Order. He was hunting down the source of the massive dark magic explosion from earlier. The Holy Church hated dark magic more than anything else in this entire big world. They would not stop until they burned my entire royal palace straight to the ground. I smiled a cold and very evil dark smile as I watched the Holy Army marching closer. The evil Chancellor was just a pathetic little warm-up for the true bloody massive war. The real ultimate test of my dark shadow empire was finally standing at my front door. I gathered my dark magical energy and prepared to welcome the foolish holy knights. I opened my detailed system status window to review my exact current magical stats. My total health pool had increased massively after the forced physical evolution. My raw strength was still very low, but my magical intelligence was completely maxed. I could summon up to 50 dark shadow tentacles at the exact same precise time now. My mind control capacity allowed me to keep exactly 5 permanent loyal elite slaves. I currently had the Supreme Fire Mage and the Evil Chancellor under my total control. This meant I had 3 empty slots left for new powerful enemies to completely break. The Grand High Inquisitor would make an absolutely perfect new addition to my collection. I closed the blue glowing system window and focused my mind on my 2 loyal servants. Ilara was busy cleaning the dark nursery and preparing my next warm bottle of milk. Kyle was sharpening his heavy steel sword with a rough gray stone near the wide window. I formed a series of dark shadow words in the cold air to give them their new orders. The Holy Church is here, and they want to burn us all alive in a massive holy bright fire. Kyle stopped sharpening his blade and looked at the floating dark text with pure anger. Those arrogant holy dogs think they can dictate the laws of our massive grand empire. I will cut their shiny golden armor into tiny little pieces with my heavy sharp sword. Ilara looked slightly worried because the Holy Church was incredibly highly powerful. They have thousands of elite paladins and supreme light magic users in their ranks. We only have a few loyal people and 2 broken mind-controlled slaves on our side now. I giggled softly and sent a wave of comforting dark magic to calm her nervous, fast heart. Quality is always much better than quantity in a massive, bloody, magical, brutal war. I commanded my 2 mind-controlled slaves to meet us in the massive royal courtyard. The evil Chancellor and the Supreme Fire Mage marched out of the Grand Throne Room. They walked like mindless zombies, but their magical power was still absolutely intact. We need to prepare a massive defensive perimeter around the entire giant royal palace. I used my shadow magic to draw a detailed tactical map on the white shiny marble floor. Kyle will take the front line and block the main heavy iron gates with his heavy sword. Elara will provide sniper support using her deadly sharp dark shadow magic spikes now. The fire mage will cast massive area of effect spells to burn the holy stupid knights. The Chancellor will use his political power to keep the royal guards out of our way. I will sit in my warm, comfortable woven basket and direct the entire bloody massive flow. This was a flawless master plan worthy of the supreme ancient lord of all dark shadows. Elara packed my small basket with extra soft silk blankets and a few wooden baby toys. She carried me out of the quiet nursery, and we headed toward the main royal courtyard. The sun was starting to set again, painting the evening sky in a deep, bloody red color. The timing was absolutely perfect because my shadow magic was strongest in the deep dark. We reached the massive open courtyard just as the Holy Army arrived at the front gates. Hundreds of holy knights on huge white-armored horses stood outside the iron-heavy bars. The Grand High Inquisitor rode forward and raised his glowing, bright, holy light sword. Open these gates in the name of the supreme holy God of pure, absolute, blinding light. We have come to purge the vile dark demon that hides inside this corrupt royal palace. His booming voice echoed across the massive stone courtyard like a loud, heavy thunder. The royal guards on the high walls looked down at the Holy Army with absolute pure fear. They did not know if they should open the heavy gates or fight the massive Holy Army. The mind-controlled evil Chancellor walked to the front of the massive iron-heavy gates. He looked at the Grand Inquisitor with his completely pitch-black, empty, dead, dark eyes. This palace is under the supreme protection of the true ancient lord of all dark shadows. Turn around and leave right now, or you will all die a very painful and bloody dark death. The Chancellor spoke the words exactly as I commanded him through our dark mental link. The Grand Inquisitor narrowed his eyes and pointed his holy sword at the old Chancellor. You are corrupted by the dark abyss, and your soul is completely lost to the vile shadows. Knights of the Holy Order smash these gates and kill every single person inside the walls. The massive Holy Army roared with absolute pure, blind, religious, highly fanatic fury now. They charged at the heavy iron gates with their massive, heavy wooden siege battering ram. The real war for the survival of my dark empire was finally starting right now tonight. I smiled from my soft baby basket and let my dark magical aura explode into the night sky. The shadows grew longer and thicker as they prepared to feast on the holy white knights. The heavy iron gates finally shattered into small pieces. Thousands of holy knights rushed into the royal courtyard. Their golden armor glowed with a blinding bright light. I felt a sharp sting in my ancient dark shadow soul now. The holy magic was highly toxic to my pure dark energy. I commanded the fire mage to unleash his ultimate spell. A massive wave of bright orange flames hit the holy men. The front line of the Holy Army burned into gray ashes. Kale charged forward like a giant, angry, heavy wild bear. He swung his massive steel sword and cut through armor. Blood sprayed across the cold and dirty stone courtyard. Elara fired sharp, dark spikes from her pale, thin hands. Every single dark spike pierced a holy knight right now. The system interface flashed with golden level-up signs. I was gaining massive experience from this bloody fight. My tiny baby body felt incredibly warm and highly alive. The evil Chancellor stood perfectly still like a statue. I used his mind-controlled body to block the holy magic. The Grand Inquisitor watched his men die with pure rage. He did not expect such a heavy and brutal dark defense. I smiled a cold and very evil dark smile at my enemies. This pathetic holy army was nothing but free magical exp. I gathered more dark mana into my small pale baby hands. I summoned 50 thick black tentacles from the shadows. The dark vines wrapped around the massive white horses. The heavy animals fell down and crushed their holy riders. Screams of pure terror echoed across the dark night sky. I was the supreme ancient monarch of all dark magic arts. No mortal army could ever defeat my absolute true power. The Grand Inquisitor raised his glowing bright holy sword. He chanted a very long and complex ancient light spell. I felt a sudden drop in the ambient dark magical energy. The holy leader was preparing a massive dirty trick now. Hundreds of captured peasants were pushed to the front. The holy knights held sharp blades to their weak throats. The Grand Inquisitor pointed his sword at my small basket. Surrender your dark magic or these innocent people will die. He spoke with a loud, booming voice full of fake justice. I looked at the crying peasants with absolute pure apathy. In my past life, I would have killed them all without care, but I knew Alara would be deeply hurt by their sad deaths. She was still a kind and very gentle human girl at heart. I paused my dark shadow attacks for a brief short second. This tiny hesitation was my first major critical mistake. The Grand Inquisitor pulled a massive glowing white orb. It was the legendary Holy Sun relic of the First Church. He threw the bright artifact high into the dark, cold sky. The holy orb exploded with a terrifying, blinding, pure light. It was like a second sun had suddenly appeared right here. The intense holy light burned my sensitive, dark baby eyes. My thick, invisible shadow barrier instantly melted away. I felt a massive, crushing weight press down on my chest. The Holy Sun relic was directly draining my total mana. The system flashed with dozens of bright red warning signs. Extreme holy radiation detected in the immediate local area. Shadow magic output is reduced by 99 total%. I tried to summon a dark shield, but my mana was totally gone. My tiny infant body was suddenly completely, totally useless. I was just a weak, helpless baby trapped in a woven basket. The holy knights cheered loudly and charged forward again. The mind-controlled fire mage tried to cast another spell. The bright holy light hit his body and burned his dark mind. He screamed in pure agony as his flesh turned to gray ash. My first loyal elite slave was completely, totally destroyed. The evil chancellor was also burning under the holy bright sun. His dark red robes caught fire and he fell to the hard floor. The holy magic completely erased his dark, corrupted old soul. I lost 2 powerful magical pawns in a single short second. Kale roared in anger and swung his heavy, sharp steel sword, but the holy light made him incredibly slow and very weak. 5 holy paladins surrounded him and stabbed his large body. Golden blades pierced his heavy iron armor and thick muscles. Kale coughed up warm red blood and fell heavily to his knees. He looked at my small basket with deep sorrow in his eyes. "I am sorry, my supreme lord, for failing you in this bloody war." He whispered the sad words and collapsed onto the cold stones. I could not feel his life force through the blinding holy light. Panic filled my ancient mind for the first time in this life. The Grand Inquisitor walked slowly toward my small baby bed. He stepped over the dead bodies with a proud, arrogant smile. "Your dark reign ends tonight, you vile, pathetic little demon." He raised his glowing holy sword to cut my small baby head. I tried to move my tiny arms, but they were incredibly heavy. The holy relic completely paralyzed my weak physical muscles. I was going to die a pathetic death in a cheap wooden basket. Suddenly, a pale, thin figure jumped in front of the holy blade. Ilara spread her arms wide to protect my small, fragile body. The holy sword slashed deep across her beautiful, pale chest. Warm red blood sprayed directly onto my soft, pale baby face. Ilara screamed in pure pain, but she did not step back at all. The holy light burned her skin because of her dark magic mark. She fell to her knees right beside my small, warm, woven basket. The Grand Inquisitor laughed coldly at her pathetic sacrifice. A foolish, dirty maid dying for a vile, dark, magical monster. He raised his holy sword again to finish both of us right now. Ilara leaned over my basket and covered me with her own body. Her warm tears mixed with the fresh red blood on my pale face. "I do not care if you are a terrifying, ancient, dark demon lord. You are the only one who ever truly protected me in this life. I love you like my own true son, and I will die for you today." She whispered the pure words directly into my tiny baby ears. Her absolute pure devotion struck my ancient, cold shadow soul. I had lived for thousands of years in my previous bloody life. I only knew betrayal and endless pain from my greedy students. No one had ever truly loved me without wanting my dark power. Ilara was willing to sacrifice her soul just to save my life. A massive wave of pure, absolute rage exploded inside my heart. I refused to let this arrogant, holy fool kill my perfect maid. I refused to lose my new empire to a pathetic, weak light cult. The blue system interface suddenly shattered into pieces. Absolute emotional resonance detected in the dark core. Forced emergency evolution protocol is now fully active. The 3rd tier of legendary shadow mastery is now unlocked. I felt a terrifying new power awaken deep inside my baby chest. It was not just dark magic, but the pure essence of the abyss. The holy light of the sun relic could no longer suppress me. I opened my glowing purple eyes and let out a loud baby cry. The sound was not a weak gurgle, but a massive demonic roar. The Grand Inquisitor froze in terror as he heard the cry. The blinding white light in the courtyard turned black. I activated my new Supreme Absolute Void Devourer skill. A massive black hole formed right above my small basket. The dark singularity began to pull all the holy magic. The legendary sun relic trembled in the dark, cold night sky. It tried to resist my gravity, but my dark power was absolute. The holy orb was sucked into the black hole and totally crushed. I absorbed the entire magical energy of the light relic. My tiny baby body floated up into the air above the floor. Thick black shadows wrapped around me like a dark armor. I looked down at the terrified knights with pure disgust. "You dared to touch my loyal servant with your dirty hands." I spoke with a voice that shook the entire massive palace. I pointed my tiny armored finger at the Grand Inquisitor. "Your pathetic light god cannot save you from my dark wrath." I unleashed a massive wave of pure, destructive dark fire. The black flames washed over the front lines of the army. The elite knights screamed as their golden armor melted. Their bodies turned into fine black dust in a single second. I did not hurt the captured peasants with my dark fire. My control over the supreme shadow magic was very perfect. The Grand Inquisitor fell to his knees in absolute horror. He watched his elite holy army burn into absolute nothing. He finally realized that he had angered a true ancient god. I floated down slowly and landed right next to the maid. Ilara was barely breathing and her pale skin was very cold. I placed my tiny armored hand on her deep bloody wound. I channeled the absorbed holy energy and mixed it deeply. The new pure void magic instantly healed her terrible cuts. Her breathing became steady and her beautiful face glowed. She opened her eyes and looked at my terrifying dark armor. She smiled warmly and kissed my tiny cold metal fingers. "I knew you would save us, my beautiful and supreme lord." I sent a gentle pulse of warm magic into her loyal mind. "Rest now, my perfect queen, because the bloody battle is done." I floated over to the broken body of my loyal giant knight. Kale was covered in deep stab wounds and totally asleep. I pushed a large amount of healing void magic into him. His terrible wounds closed up and his breathing returned. He would live to fight another bloody day for my empire. I turned my absolute dark attention to the Grand Inquisitor. The arrogant holy leader was crawling away like a worm. He dropped his holy sword and tried to hide behind the dead. I summoned a dark shadow tentacle and grabbed his right leg. I dragged him across the dirty, bloody floor to my feet. He cried and begged for his miserable life very loudly. "Please show mercy to a humble servant of the light god." I looked down at him with my glowing, terrifying purple eyes. Mercy is a human weakness, and I am no longer a weak human. I crushed his right leg with my dark magic, and he screamed. I wanted to mind control him, but his soul was too corrupted. He was a fanatic who would always try to betray my empire. I decided to send a very clear message to the Holy Church. I used my shadows to rip his left arm entirely off his body. Blood poured onto the stones as he cried in absolute agony. "Go back to your shiny cathedral and tell your pathetic pope. Tell him that the Shadow Monarch has returned to claim all. Tell him to prepare his own neck for my sharp, dark blade." I released his broken body and let him crawl into the dark. He dragged himself out of the ruined gates in total defeat. The surviving holy knights ran away like terrified rabbits. They left their shiny weapons and heavy armor on the floor. The massive bloody battle was finally over and I was winner. The red system interface chimed with massive epic rewards. "You have successfully survived a deadly supreme crisis now. Your relationship with the heroine has reached maximum rank. Ilara is now officially recognized as the Dark Queen Mother. You have acquired the legendary title of Absolute Void Lord. Your raw magical intelligence has broken the mortal limit." I dismissed the system notifications and canceled my armor. My tiny pale baby body floated gently back into the basket. I felt incredibly exhausted after using so much dark power. Ilara slowly stood up and walked over to my small baby bed. She picked me up and hugged me tightly against her chest. I rested my small head against her shoulder and closed eyes. We had survived the worst possible holy attack from Church. But I knew this was only the beginning of the final war now. The Holy Pope would not ignore the destruction of his army. He would activate the supreme doomsday spell in the church. I needed to strike first and destroy their holy church now. Kale finally woke up and looked around the ruined courtyard. He saw the piles of black ash and the broken golden armor. He slowly stood up and bowed deeply before my small basket. You are truly a supreme god of death and dark destruction. I am honored to bleed for your glorious and eternal rule. I formed a dark shadow word in the air to give new orders. The word simply said, "Prepare for the final bloody battle." Kale nodded his head and went to gather the royal guards. The royal guards had watched the entire fight from the wall. They knew that I was the absolute true ruler of this empire. They quickly swore their absolute loyalty to my baby form. I now had a massive army of soldiers ready to follow orders. Ilara carried me back inside the massive cold stone palace. The grand halls were completely empty and totally silent. The weak emperor was hiding in his golden bedroom in fear. I did not care about that pathetic weak old man anymore. I was the one who controlled the entire military force now. We returned to the quiet royal nursery and locked the door. Ilara placed me gently into my soft, warm, comfortable crib. She brought me a fresh silver cup of warm milk to drink. I drank the milk and felt my magical core recovering power. I opened my detailed system map and zoomed on the cathedral. The massive white building was located in the city center. It was heavily fortified with ancient light magic barriers. I could see thousands of red enemy dots inside the walls. The Grand Inquisitor had warned the Pope about my power. They were preparing a massive magical ritual to erase me. I smiled a cold baby smile and closed the blue system map. They thought their thick stone walls could protect them. They did not know that the shadows were inside their home. I spent the rest of the dark night refining my void magic. The void energy was much stronger than my old shadow magic. It could completely consume and destroy any light barrier. I created dozens of small, invisible void spies to scout. The tiny dark shadows traveled across the sleeping city. They slipped through the tiny cracks in the massive walls. They provided me with a perfect live view of their secrets. The Holy Pope was a very old man with a long white beard. He wore shiny golden robes covered in massive bright gems. He was standing in front of a giant white statue of God. He was chanting a forbidden spell that required warm blood. The hypocritical Holy Church was willing to kill their own. I watched as they dragged hundreds of monks to the altar. They were going to use human souls to power their weapon. I felt a deep sense of absolute disgust at their methods. I was a dark demon lord, but I never killed my loyal men. I only destroyed those who dared to stand in my dark way. The sun slowly began to rise over the massive capital city. The golden morning light filled my quiet, peaceful nursery. Ilara woke up and stretched her pale, thin, delicate arms. She looked completely refreshed and full of immense power. The void magic I gave her had permanently changed her soul. She was now a supreme dark priestess capable of dark magic. Kyle knocked heavily on the thick wooden door and entered. He was wearing a brand new set of heavy black steel armor. The royal blacksmiths worked all night to forge his gear. The royal army is fully assembled in the main square, Lord. We are waiting for your absolute final command to march on. Kale spoke with a loud, booming voice full of confidence. I giggled softly and floated out of my warm baby crib now. I summoned my terrifying black shadow armor to cover me. I looked like a tiny floating dark knight of pure death. Ilara smiled proudly and opened the heavy wooden door now. We walked down the long, grand stone corridors of the palace. The royal servants bowed so low their faces touched floor. They whispered prayers to the new dark god who saved them. We reached the massive front balcony overlooking the square. 10,000 elite royal soldiers stood in perfect lines. They wore shiny silver armor and carried sharp, long spears. They looked up at the balcony and saw the floating baby. A massive wave of absolute pure silence fell over the army. I projected my ancient demonic voice into their weak minds. Today we march to destroy the hypocritical Holy Church now. They tried to burn our home and kill our innocent people. We will show them the true terrifying power of the abyss. Leave no holy knight alive and burn their shiny cathedral. The massive army erupted into a deafening, loud battle roar. They slammed their long spears against their heavy shields. The sound was like a massive thunderstorm over the city. I smiled behind my dark metal mask and pointed at church. The massive royal army began to march through the streets. The normal city citizens hid inside their houses in fear. They knew that a truly massive and bloody war was starting. I floated gently down from the balcony onto a carriage. Ilara sat right beside me and held my tiny armored hand. Kyle rode a massive black warhorse at the front of army. We moved slowly and confidently toward the Holy Cathedral. I used my void spies to monitor the panic inside the walls. The Holy Pope was rushing his bloody dark sacrifice ritual. He knew that his normal holy knights could never stop me. He was trying to summon a supreme holy angel of light now. I found this completely deeply amusing and highly pathetic. An angel of light was nothing compared to the Shadow Lord. We finally reached the massive open square by the church. The giant white cathedral stood tall under the morning sun. A massive, glowing, golden, magical barrier protected building. Thousands of holy archers stood on the high stone walls. They aimed their glowing light arrows directly at my army. The broken Grand Inquisitor stood on the balcony with arm. He looked down at us with a face full of absolute pure hate. "You will never break this holy barrier, you vile dark demon!" He screamed loudly, trying to sound brave before his men. I did not waste any time talking to a broken, pathetic worm. I floated up high into the bright sky above the royal army. I gathered a massive amount of pure void energy in my hand. I formed a giant black spear made of pure dark destruction. The sky turned completely black as my magic consumed light. I threw the massive dark spear directly at the gold barrier. The void magic hit the holy shield with a deafening crash. The unbreakable supreme light barrier shattered like glass. The holy archers fell from the walls as the shockwave hit. The Grand Inquisitor fell onto his back in absolute shock. I pointed my tiny armored finger at the massive church door. "Kill them all and bring me the head of the pathetic Pope." I commanded my loyal army with absolute dark authority now. Kyle roared loudly and charged forward with his black horse. The royal army flooded into the cathedral like a big river. The final bloody battle for the absolute control had begun. I floated back down to my comfortable carriage and watched. Ilara smiled brightly and handed me a small wooden toy now. I giggled like a totally normal baby while my enemies died. The system interface popped up with a final quest warning. Defeat the Supreme Holy Angel to complete global conquest. I closed the blue window and waited for the final boss now. The Shadow Monarch was fully ready to claim his victory. The massive stone walls of the Holy Church started to break. I could hear the loud screams of the dying holy knights now. My dark void magic was consuming the entire Holy Cathedral. The system interface updated my total magical damage output. My raw power was growing with every single holy enemy death. I was no longer just a human baby with legendary dark magic. I was slowly becoming the absolute pure concept of the void. Ilara brushed my small, pale cheek with her soft, warm finger. Her dark priestess aura protected us from any stray weapons. We watched the glorious destruction of the pathetic enemies. The Grand Inquisitor was crushed under a falling stone wall. His pathetic life ended without any true glorious honor now. I felt a massive surge of pure light magic from the inside. The Holy Pope had finally completed his bloody dark ritual. A massive pillar of blinding white light shot into the sky. The clouds parted and a giant glowing figure descended down. It was the Supreme Holy Angel of absolute pure destruction. The final epic boss had finally arrived to fight me today. I smiled and prepared to devour its delicious holy essence. The giant glowing angel landed on the ruined stone floor. A massive shockwave of pure light pushed my army backward. I looked up at the Supreme Holy Angel with pure disgust. The system interface flashed with a bright red warning. Divine entity detected in the immediate combat local zone. Its magical power level exceeds all known mortal limits. I smiled coldly and prepared my ultimate dark void magic. The Holy Pope stepped out from behind the giant angel now. He wore his shiny golden robes covered in massive jewels. His old wrinkled face was twisted into a crazy mad smile. "You cannot defeat a true messenger of the light god today." The Pope screamed with a loud and very arrogant old voice. He pointed his bony finger directly at my small carriage. Kill that vile dark demon and save our glorious holy city. The supreme angel opened its 6 massive white wings now. A blinding aura of pure holy fire erupted from its body. My royal soldiers dropped their weapons in absolute terror. The sheer pressure of the divine magic was far too heavy. I opened my detailed system status window to check the foe. The blue screen displayed the exact stats of the giant boss. Name is Supreme Holy Angel of Absolute Pure Light and Fire. Level is currently estimated at the maximum mortal boundary. Health points are virtually infinite due to Holy Light Core. I closed the system window and let out a soft baby giggle. In my past life, I killed thousands of these pathetic angels. They were nothing but mindless drones created by a dead god. They had absolutely no free will and no real combat tactics. They just relied on their overwhelming raw magical power. Kyle stood his ground and raised his heavy black sword. He roared like a wild beast and charged at the giant angel. "I will cut your shiny wings off for my supreme dark lord." The brave knight swung his massive blade with brutal force. The angel did not even look at my loyal giant dark knight. It simply waved its glowing hand and released a light wave. The holy attack hit Kale and threw him across the square. He crashed into a thick stone wall with a very loud bang. His heavy black steel armor cracked under the pure force. Elara gasped loudly and rushed to heal his broken bones. She channeled her dark priestess magic into his huge wounds. "Do not worry about me, my beautiful and powerful dark queen." Kale coughed up warm red blood and smiled a very dark smile. "I must protect the Shadow Monarch until my very last breath." The supreme angel turned its faceless head toward my army. It opened its massive glowing mouth and began to chant now. A massive ball of pure holy fire formed above its big head. The heat was so intense that the stone floor began to melt. My royal soldiers screamed in pure terror and tried to run, but the holy magic locked them completely in their places. The angel released the massive fireball directly at my men. I could not let my loyal army be destroyed by this fool. I activated my absolute void devourer skill without delay. A massive black hole appeared right above my small carriage. The dark singularity pulled the giant fireball into its maw. The holy fire was instantly consumed and totally erased now. The royal soldiers cheered loudly for their dark baby god. The Pope gasped in pure shock and dropped his golden staff. "This is absolutely impossible for a tiny human baby to do," the old man whispered with a trembling and very weak voice. I floated out of my warm, comfortable woven baby basket now. I summoned my terrifying black shadow armor to cover myself. The dark void magic wrapped around my tiny, weak baby body. I looked like a tiny floating dark night of pure deep death. The dark void magic flowed out of my tiny pale baby hands. It wrapped around my small chest and formed a solid plate. Black metal spikes grew from the shoulders of the dark armor. A heavy dark cape made of pure shadows fell down my back. A terrifying black helmet covered my entire small baby face. Only my glowing purple eyes were visible through the slit. I flexed my tiny armored fingers and felt immense raw power. The holy light in the square instantly dimmed around my aura. The angel stopped attacking the army and stared at my form. It sensed a true ancient threat to its divine existence now. I flew high into the bright morning sky above the big city. I wanted everyone to see the true power of the dark void. The supreme angel finally noticed my terrifying dark aura. It spread its 6 giant wings and flew up to meet me there. We hovered in the air facing each other in absolute silence. The angel raised a massive sword made of pure bright light. It swung the giant glowing blade directly at my small head. I did not even blink as the massive holy weapon fell fast. I simply raised my tiny armored hand and caught the blade. The massive holy sword stopped completely in the cold air. A loud shockwave shattered all the glass windows nearby. I smiled behind my dark metal mask and crushed the weapon. The massive holy sword shattered into tiny glowing pieces. The angel stumbled backward and lost its perfect balance. I used this brief moment to launch my first dark attack. I gathered a massive amount of pure void energy in my hand. I fired a thick beam of absolute dark destruction right now. The black beam hit the supreme angel directly in the chest. The holy entity let out a deafening and very painful sound. Golden blood poured from the massive hole in its huge chest. The angel fell from the sky and crashed into the hard floor. A massive cloud of gray dust covered the entire holy square. The royal army erupted into a massive, deafening, loud cheer. They thought the bloody epic battle was finally over today. I dashed through the cold air faster than the human eye saw. I punched the giant angel directly in its glowing, blank face. The sheer physical force of my blow cracked its holy mask. The angel retaliated with a massive sweep of its giant sword. I ducked under the glowing blade and kicked its huge chest. The impact sent the supreme entity crashing into a tower. The stone tower collapsed into a massive pile of gray rubble. The angel burst out of the ruins with pure, absolute fury now. It fired a continuous beam of blinding light from its mouth. I simply stood in the air and let the holy beam hit my chest. The void armor absorbed the light magic without a scratch. "You are incredibly weak for a supposed supreme divine boss." I mocked the giant entity with my cold, ancient, demonic voice. The angel roared in anger and charged at me with full speed. We collided in the center of the sky, creating a huge blast. The shockwave knocked every single soldier off their feet. Ilara had to create a dark magic shield to protect the men. Kyle watched the epic battle with pure worship in his eyes. He knew he was witnessing the true rebirth of a dark god. But I knew that divine entities were very hard to kill now. The massive pile of ruined stones slowly began to move now. The supreme angel stood up and started to heal its big body. Bright light filled its deep wounds and fixed its holy core. The system interface popped up with a new blue warning sign. The enemy is using absolute pure divine healing magic now. It will continue to revive until its core is totally broken. I sighed internally and turned my attention back to the foe. This was getting slightly annoying for my tired baby mind. I needed to finish this bloody battle with one final strike. Ilara ran forward and stood right below my floating form. She raised her pale hands and gathered her dark, pure magic. "I will help you break its holy shield, my supreme dark lord." She fired a massive barrage of sharp, dark spikes at the foe. The dark magic hit the angel and distracted its empty mind. Kyle also joined the fight despite his heavy bleeding wounds. He threw his massive steel sword directly at the angel head. The heavy blade struck the glowing face and cracked the mask. My two loyal servants gave me the perfect tactical opening. I closed my glowing purple eyes and focused my entire soul. I activated the absolute maximum power of my pure void core. The sky above the capital city turned completely pitch black. All the ambient light in the world was suddenly sucked away. I summoned the ultimate spell known as the Deep Dark Abyss. A massive black hole appeared right behind the giant angel. The gravitational pull was incredibly heavy and terrifying. The supreme angel tried to fly away from the huge black hole, but its holy light was completely useless against the void. The black hole slowly pulled the giant angel into its core. The angel screamed in pure, absolute terror as it was eaten. Its glowing golden body was stretched and completely broken. I watched with a cold smile as the false god was destroyed. The black hole consumed the angel and shrank into nothing. The bright morning sun finally returned to the massive city. The supreme boss of the Holy Church was completely dead now. The system interface exploded with endless golden level-ups. You have successfully defeated a supreme divine light entity. Your level has increased by exactly 100 total points. You have unlocked the final tier of absolute void mastery. Your physical body has gained supreme absolute durability. You can now transform into a fully grown adult dark monarch. I read the final notification with absolute pure total joy. I was finally free from this weak and pathetic baby vessel. I activated the new transformation skill without hesitation. A massive pillar of dark purple energy surrounded my body. My tiny bones stretched and grew with incredible fast speed. My muscles expanded and filled with absolute supreme power. The system interface detailed every single physical change. Bone density increased by exactly 10,000 total %. Muscle mass expanded to perfectly match the absolute maximum. Magical core stabilized at the supreme legendary void rank. Vocal cords matured to produce a deep, commanding adult tone. Facial structure reformed into a highly attractive male face. I looked down at my new long legs and large, powerful hands. I summoned a mirror made of pure dark shadow to check myself. My jawline was sharp and my purple eyes glowed with power. I was easily the most handsome man in this entire big world. The dark royal suit fit my broad, muscular shoulders nicely. I finally felt like my true ancient self after a long time. Being a helpless baby was a truly humiliating experience. I would never let anyone look down on my physical form again. The dark energy faded, and I stood tall on the stone floor. I was now a tall and incredibly handsome adult human male. I wore a magnificent black royal suit with gold decorations. My long dark hair blew gently in the cold morning city wind. Ilara gasped loudly and dropped to her knees in pure shock. She looked at my new adult form with absolute pure devotion. "You are absolutely breathtaking, my supreme dark shadow lord," she whispered with a deep red blush on her beautiful face. I smiled warmly and offered her my large, strong right hand. "Stand up, my beautiful queen, because we have finally won it." She took my hand, and I pulled her up into a warm, tight hug. She rested her head on my broad chest and cried happy tears. Kale walked over and bowed deeply before my brand new form. "You look like a true emperor of death and dark destruction." I thanked my loyal knight and turned back to the holy pope. The old man was staring at me with his mouth entirely open. He could not understand how a baby turned into a grown man. I walked slowly toward him with heavy and confident steps. Every single step echoed loudly across the ruined square. I stopped right in front of him and looked down at his face. "Your false god is dead, and your holy army is turning to ash. You have absolutely nothing left in this cruel, dark world." I spoke with a cold and very emotionless, deep, ancient voice. The Pope trembled and pressed his face against the dirt. "I beg you to show mercy to a poor, defeated, old, weak human." The Pope tried to crawl away, but his old arms were too weak. He left a trail of dirty tears and sweat on the cold floor. I stepped on his right hand and crushed his fragile bones. He screamed in pure agony and begged for his God to save him. "Your God cannot hear you because I just ate his messenger." I whispered the cold, dark truth directly into his old ear. The realization completely shattered his weak, pathetic mind. He started to laugh like a totally insane, broken wild man. I grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up for everyone. "Look at your glorious holy leader crying like a little pig." I shouted to the surviving holy priests hiding in the ruins. They dropped to their knees and prayed to me instead of God. They abandoned their faith the moment true power arrived. I felt absolute pure disgust for these hypocritical worms. I reached down and grabbed him by his expensive gold robes. I lifted him high into the air so the entire royal army saw. This man ordered the death of innocent babies and poor men. He hid his vile corruption behind a fake mask of holy light. Today I will show you exactly what happens to true traitors. I used my void magic to strip away his shiny magical robes. He was left hanging in his dirty, cheap white undergarments. The royal soldiers laughed loudly at the pathetic old pope. The public humiliation of my final enemy was very complete. I summoned a sharp blade of pure dark shadow in my hand. I did not use any complex magic to finish his ruined life. I simply swung the dark blade and cut off his ugly old head. His headless body dropped to the floor with a heavy thud. His head rolled across the ruined stones like a cheap ball. The royal army erupted into a massive, deafening, loud cheer. They slammed their spears against their shields in total joy. The Holy Church was completely and absolutely destroyed now. I stood victorious in the center of the ruined big square. Ilara walked up to me and handed me the shiny golden crown. She had taken it from the weak emperor before we left home. "It is time for you to claim your rightful place as the king." She stood on her toes and gently placed the crown on me. The heavy gold felt perfectly natural on my adult human head. I turned to face my loyal army and raised my dark hand up. "I am the supreme Shadow Monarch, and this world is mine now." The soldiers fell to their knees and bowed their heads low. Long live the immortal Dark Emperor of the massive empire. Their voices echoed across the entire massive capital city. The coronation ceremony was the grandest event in history. Millions of people gathered in the massive capital square. They threw beautiful red rose petals onto the black streets. I wore a magnificent dark cape made of pure shadow magic. Ilara walked beside me wearing a stunning black silk dress. She looked like a true goddess of the dark, beautiful night. Kyle marched behind us carrying my massive royal banner. The rich nobles from other kingdoms came to bow before me. They brought massive chests filled with shiny gold and gems. They offered their beautiful daughters as my royal wives. I rejected them all because I only needed my perfect queen. Ilara smiled brightly when I publicly declared my true love. I kissed her passionately in front of the massive crowd. The system interface updated my global reputation to maximum. You are now officially recognized as the supreme world ruler. All enemy factions are currently terrified of your dark name. Global trade and massive economy are booming under your laws. I spent the next few weeks completely restructuring the land. I executed all the corrupt nobles who supported the king. I placed my loyal dark followers in every high-power seat. Kale was promoted to the Grand Commander of the entire army. He trained the new recruits with absolute brutal methods. Ilara became my official royal queen and supreme advisor. She ruled the domestic affairs with perfect grace and wisdom. The week-old emperor was banished to a tiny cold island. He died of his hidden poison a few short, miserable days. The capital city was rebuilt using my supreme void magic. Massive black stone towers replaced the old wooden homes. The citizens quickly learned to love their new Dark Lord. I provided them with endless food and perfect security. Crime was completely eliminated because my shadows saw all. Anyone who broke my strict laws was instantly eaten alive. I sat on my massive new throne made of pure black stone. Ilara sat right beside me holding my large, warm adult hand. We watched the grand royal parade marching down the street. I spent my days sitting on the throne and managing the land. I used my void spies to monitor every single distant border. No one could ever plot against me without my total knowledge. I built massive magical academies to train new young mages. I taught them the true secrets of the ancient dark magic. My empire became the most powerful force in the entire world. Everything was perfectly peaceful in my glorious empire. But the system interface suddenly flashed with a red warning. A massive unknown magical energy signature has been detected. The source is located across the massive deep dark ocean. A fleet of flying magical ships is approaching our borders. They carry the banners of the ancient supreme dragon lords. I read the notification and smiled a very wide, dark smile. I was starting to get slightly bored with this total peace. I stood up from my dark throne and summoned my black sword. Ilara looked at me with her beautiful, glowing purple eyes. "Are we going to war again, my supreme and handsome emperor?" I kissed her soft, pale lips and nodded my head very slowly. "The dragon lords think they can steal my massive empire. We will show them the true, terrifying power of the void." I walked out onto the grand balcony to address my army. The Shadow Monarch is finally ready for a brand new hunt. The Shadow Monarch is finally ready for a brand new hunt. I stood tall on the grand royal balcony. My new adult form felt absolutely strong. I looked down at my massive loyal army. They waited for my supreme royal command. 10,000 elite soldiers stood in silence. Their silver armor gleamed in the bright sun. They were the perfect instruments of my will. Ilara stood beside me with a calm smile. Her hand rested gently on my black armor. Kyle stood on my other side with his sword. His eyes burned with a pure battle lust. The entire capital city was watching us. My people trusted me with their lives. I would not fail them in this new war. I raised my hand, and the army fell silent. My voice boomed across the massive square. "A new enemy approaches from the dark sea. They are ancient dragons full of old pride. They think our mortal empire is very weak. They want to burn our homes and our lives. We will show them the true power of void. We will break their scales and their bones. We will teach them to fear the human race." The army roared with a deafening war cry. They were not afraid of the ancient beasts. They were the loyal soldiers of a true god. I dismissed the army to their battle posts. The city prepared for the coming invasion. Massive void cannons were raised on the walls. Ilara created a dark shield over the city. It would protect us from the dragon fire. I felt the enemy fleet getting much closer. The system interface showed their location. They were just a few miles from our coast. Their speed was truly incredibly fast. They would arrive in less than 1 hour. I turned to my queen and my best knight. "Ilara, you will command the city defenses. Use your dark magic to support our troops. Kyle, you will lead the Royal Air Force. We have tamed the wild griffins for war. Take 5,000 riders to the skies. Intercept the dragon fleet above the sea. I will deal with their leader personally." My 2 loyal servants bowed their heads. They understood their roles perfectly well. "We will not fail you, my supreme emperor." Kale spoke with absolute pure confidence. I smiled and teleported to the high coast. I stood on a tall black cliff alone. The cold sea wind whipped my dark hair. The waves crashed against the sharp rocks. I could see the enemy fleet on the horizon. Hundreds of massive flying ships appeared. They were carved from black dragon bones. They moved through the air like ghosts. At the front of the fleet flew a huge beast. It was a massive golden dragon with pride. He was easily 5 times bigger than a ship. The system identified him as the prince. Prince Draxus was the son of the emperor. His arrogance radiated across the dark sea. I waited patiently for him to get closer. I wanted to see his face when he saw me. The massive dragon fleet finally arrived. They stopped a few hundred feet from me. Prince Draxus flew forward and hovered. He looked down at me with pure disgust. "A lone mortal dares to stand before me." His voice was like grinding ancient stones. "Kneel before me, you pathetic little insect. I will spare your life if you surrender." I simply crossed my arms and smiled now. "Your father did not teach you any manners." I spoke with a calm and very deep voice. "I am the emperor of this entire land. You are the one who should kneel to me." Draxus let out a massive roar of rage. His hot breath burned the air around me. "You have signed your own death warrant." He opened his massive mouth to attack me. A huge stream of bright golden fire shot. The flames were hot enough to melt stone. I did not even bother to move at all. I simply raised my hand and caught it. The golden fire swirled in my palm. I absorbed its magical energy completely. The dragon prince stared in pure shock. His most powerful attack did nothing. "This is completely and totally impossible." He whispered the words in disbelief. I smiled and formed a ball of void fire. It was much darker and colder than his. I flicked the small black flame at him. The tiny spark hit his massive chest. The void fire exploded with massive force. A huge hole was burned in his scales. The golden dragon screamed in pure agony. He fell from the sky and hit the water. A massive wave splashed against the cliff. The other dragons on the ships panicked. They had never seen their prince get hurt. Kyle and his griffin riders appeared now. They flew down from the clouds like hawks. They attacked the dragon ships with spears. The dragon soldiers were caught off guard. They scrambled to fight the human army. I ignored the chaotic battle in the sky. I focused my attention on the fallen prince. Draxus slowly emerged from the cold sea. His golden scales were blackened and burned. He looked at me with pure absolute hate. "You will pay for this, you vile dark mage." He flapped his massive wings and rose up. He charged at me with his sharp claws. I did not move from my spot on the cliff. I let him come closer to my new body. His massive golden claws slashed at my face. I simply tilted my head to the left side. The claws missed me by a single inch. I grabbed his massive arm with my hand. I squeezed his thick bones with my power. The sound of cracking echoed loudly. Draxus roared in pain and tried to pull, but my grip was like a vice of steel. I pulled him closer to my own calm face. "Your brute force is pathetic and useless." I whispered the words into his reptilian ear. I punched him directly in his huge snout. My fist was covered in dark void energy. The punch shattered his entire jawbone. Golden blood sprayed across my black suit. He stumbled backward and fell on the cliff. The massive dragon was completely helpless. I walked slowly toward his broken body. I placed my boot on his massive head. "I am the true apex predator in this world. You are just a big lizard with a crown." The dragon prince tried to speak to me, but his broken jaw just made gurgles. I could feel his pure terror and his fear. He finally realized his fatal mistake. He had challenged a true ancient god. The battle in the sky was going very well. Kale and his riders were winning the war. The dragon soldiers were not trained well. They were clumsy and slow in the air. My griffin riders were fast and deadly. I decided to end this pathetic invasion. I sent a wave of pure void energy out. The dark magic washed over the ships. The dragon soldiers fell to their knees. Their minds were crushed by my pressure. They dropped their weapons and surrendered. Kyle and his men cheered loudly in sky. They had won a massive victory today. I looked down at the broken dragon prince. His pride was completely shattered to bits. I could have killed him very easily, but death was too merciful for him now. I wanted to send a message to his dad. I used my void magic to heal his jaw. He could speak again, but the pain was bad. "Please spare my life, great dark emperor," he begged with a trembling, pathetic voice. "I will give you all my father's gold." I laughed coldly at his pathetic offer. "I do not need your useless, shiny gold. I need you to be my loyal messenger." I grabbed him by the throat and lifted. His massive body dangled in the air. "Go back to your pathetic dragon emperor. Tell him that I am coming for his head. Tell him to prepare his own funeral." I threw him back into the cold, dark sea. He scrambled to fly away in pure terror. He did not even look back at his fleet. His loyal soldiers were left behind him. I claimed their ships and their weapons. The system announced my glorious victory. "You have captured the entire dragon fleet. You have humiliated the dragon prince. Your reputation has spread across the sea. The dragon empire now fears your name." I teleported back to the capital city. Elara was waiting for me on the balcony. She hugged me tightly and kissed my lips. "I knew you would win, my handsome king." I smiled and returned her warm embrace. "The first battle is over, but not the war. The dragon emperor will not take this loss. He will gather his entire massive army. He will come to our shores to kill me. We must prepare for the final conflict." I addressed my people from the balcony. "We have won a great victory today, but the true war is just about to start. The dragon emperor is an ancient being. He is much stronger than his weak son, but we will not fear him or his power. We will fight for our homes and freedom." The people cheered and raised their fists. They were ready to die for their emperor. I spent the next few days planning war. I used the captured ships to build a navy. My void mages enchanted the black hulls. The ships could now travel underwater. I trained the captured dragon soldiers. I used my mind control to ensure loyalty. They became the elite vanguard of my army. The system gave me a new global quest: defeat the ancient supreme dragon emperor. The reward is absolute control over all. I knew this would be my final battle. The dragon emperor was the last old god. Once he was dead, I would be supreme. My void spies traveled across the ocean. They scouted the massive dragon empire. Their continent was a volcanic wasteland. Massive black mountains pierced the sky. A huge palace made of obsidian stood. This was the throne of the Dragon Lord. I saw millions of dragons in the sky. They were preparing for a massive attack. The Dragon Emperor was a colossal beast. He was 10 times bigger than his son. His scales were as black as the night. His eyes glowed with pure, red-hot fire. The system could not even read his stats. His power level was beyond all limits. I knew I could not fight him alone. I needed to use my brain and tactics. I gathered my war council in the hall. Elara and Kale stood by my new throne. I showed them the spy images of the foe. Kale whistled loudly when he saw the beast. "That is a truly massive angry lizard. How do we even scratch his thick hide?" Elara looked at the map with a frown. "We cannot win a direct frontal assault. Their numbers are simply too overwhelming." I smiled because I had a master plan. "We will not fight them on their terms. We will bring the war to their home. We will use our new fleet to surprise. We will strike at the heart of their city. While their army is crossing the ocean, we will kill their emperor and their hope." Kyle and Elara liked my bold plan. It was risky, but also very brilliant. We spent the next week preparing fleet. We loaded the ships with food and men. My entire elite royal army boarded them. I stood on the deck of my flagship. Elara and Kale were right beside me. I gave the final order to set sail. The massive black fleet submerged deep. We traveled silently under the waves. The dragons would never see us coming. The journey across the ocean took days. We finally reached the enemy coast. We surfaced under the cover of night. The dragon city was sleeping peacefully. They had no idea we were right here. I gave the signal to start the attack. My void cannons fired at the Black Palace. The obsidian walls shattered like glass. The sleeping dragons woke up in panic. They flew into the air in confusion. My army stormed the beaches of the city. The mind-controlled dragons led the charge. They fought their own kind with no mercy. I teleported directly into the throne room. The Dragon Emperor was waiting for me. He was sitting on his massive throne. He looked at me with ancient, cold eyes. "So the little human insect has arrived." His voice shook the entire huge palace. "You are more foolish than I thought, boy. You have walked right into my own trap." He snapped his massive black claws loudly. The entire throne room began to shake. The stone floor opened up beneath me. I fell into a massive dark pit below. The pit was filled with glowing green acid. I used my void magic to stop my fall. I hovered just above the bubbling liquid. The Dragon Emperor laughed a deep laugh. "You cannot escape my ultimate prison. This acid can melt even dragon scales. You will die a slow and painful death." I smiled behind my dark metal mask. "You really love your dramatic speeches." I flew up out of the pit with ease. I landed back in the throne room floor. The Emperor's laugh died in his throat. He looked at me with pure disbelief. "How did you resist my ancient trap?" I shrugged my broad shoulders lightly. "Your magic is old and very primitive. It has no effect on the Void Lord." I summoned my black sword in my hand. It glowed with a dark purple energy. Now it is my turn to play a game. I dashed forward with incredible speed. I appeared right in front of his face. I swung my sword at his massive eye. He was too slow to dodge my attack. The void blade cut deep into his flesh. Black blood poured from his right eye. He roared in pure agony and pure rage. He swung his massive tail at my body. I jumped over the tail and landed on it. I ran up his back like it was a road. I plunged my sword deep into his spine. The void magic corrupted his nervous system. He thrashed around trying to shake me, but I held on tight to my void sword. His massive body crashed into the walls. The entire palace began to crumble now. I pulled my sword out and jumped away. He fell to the floor completely paralyzed. His one good eye stared at me with hate. "You will not win this war, you monster. My army will return and kill you all." I walked over to his massive head now. I placed my hand on his black scales. "Your army is not coming back to save you. They are currently at the bottom of sea." I showed him a vision in his own mind. He saw his massive fleet being destroyed. A giant kraken made of void magic rose. It crushed his ships and ate his dragons. The vision was a complete lie, of course, but his panicked mind believed it all. The last spark of hope died in his eye. He was completely and utterly broken. I did not kill him with my void sword. I used my ultimate mind control skill. I invaded his ancient and powerful mind. He fought back with all his might now, but his broken spirit was no match for me. I shattered his will and his memories. I replaced them with absolute loyalty. His red eye turned a deep dark purple. He was now my most powerful slave. The system announced my final victory. "You have conquered the ancient dragons. You are the undisputed ruler of the world. A new title has been granted to you. You are now the supreme void monarch." I stood on the head of my new pet. The Dragon Emperor bowed his head low. The fighting outside had finally stopped. My army had conquered the entire city. Alara and Kale entered the throne room. They looked at the giant kneeling dragon. They bowed before me with pure respect. Long live the supreme void monarch. I smiled and looked at my new empire. The entire world was finally at my feet, but I felt a strange sense of emptiness. The thrill of the hunt was now over. I had no more enemies left to defeat. Suddenly the system flashed bright red. A new threat has been detected now. It is not from this world or dimension. A massive portal is opening in the sky. Beings of pure chaos are pouring out. I looked up at the swirling purple hole. A new hunt was finally about to begin.
This video and everything in it are completely fictional and original creations by Manhwa. The story is made only for storytelling and entertainment inside the fictional universe. It isn't meant to encourage violence, dangerous actions, or harmful behavior, and nothing in this video should be copied in real life. All characters shown in this work are fictional and are presented as 18 years old or older. This content is made only for entertainment and isn't intended to offend, attack, or harm any person, group, or organization. This channel is more than just entertainment. It's made to share deep ideas, powerful meanings, and valuable insights through stories that make you think and feel in a new way.